So, I'm an entrepreneur and an endurance runner. Maybe on the surface, these two things don't seem to have much in common, but the more you think about it, the more comparisons you can draw. I was always a runner, but starting my own business is what made me a long-distance runner. So I think somewhere inside of the insane hours and the challenge of jumping headfirst into the unknown, my brain was so crazy that the only thing I could do was lace up and get out. And the farther I ran, the better I felt, and the more clarity I had, so I ran even farther. So I like to think that the intense pressure of being an entrepreneur made me into an ultra runner as opposed to a diamond. So this isn't an entirely new phenomena. This has been documented by the likes of Inc. and Business Insider and Forbes. There are a number of studies on this. What I like and what I think is super interesting is not that a lot of other entrepreneurs feel like I do, and there's intense pressure of their work, so they get out, they need some equal and opposite release. What I think is really interesting is that athletes also feel this in the opposite direction. So athletes are often forced to market themselves in order to get sponsorship, to pay for expensive gear and races and travel. But some athletes, for them, it's a natural extension of who they are to become an entrepreneur. So Venus Williams is a really great example of this. For those who don't know, Venus Williams was 3 separate times ranked the best tennis player in the whole entire world. She's won 7 singles titles and championships, 14 times doubles championship winner, and a 4-time Olympic gold medalist. So not too shabby. She then went on to start her own activewear company, 11, and this company makes tennis clothing and also women's performance clothing. And when Inc. interviewed her, they asked her what she thought her biggest strength was. She said, "I'm a collaborator. I know I don't know everything. I don't want to know everything. I like to surround myself with people who are better than me. And I love to know what they think about an idea in order to make it better." It's a pretty wise lady. So when I became an endurance runner, I became a better entrepreneur in 4 main ways that I'd like to talk about. The first is nutrition. So this isn't fancy eating I'm talking about. It's specific scientific eating. So I eat superfoods like chia seeds. I eat whole proteins like peanut butter. Beets reduce lactic acid in your legs from running too much. Turmeric reduces swelling. Pineapple has vitamin C, which is healing and restorative. Coconut water, long time known to be quite refreshing, also has really easily digestible carbohydrates. So what this is to say is that it's worth putting premium fuel in your invaluable machine, because as both an athlete and an entrepreneur, your most valuable asset is you. So sleep. I think entrepreneurs often are rumored not to sleep. I like to sleep. I don't skimp on it. When I'm tired at night from both exercise and work. But the fact that I get a decent amount of sleep means that I need to be focused and engaged with my work all day long. So one tip for this is to be like the trail runner in an endurance race who's running from aid station to aid station. Structure your day around what you know you actually need to achieve, pace yourself, and then reward yourself with regular short breaks. One of the most important lessons you can learn is about leadership, and I learned about leadership through leading my own trips on our website. This picture, this day, I led a trip to a place I'd never been before. So before I went, I studied the map in detail. I talked to my partner who had previously ridden the track on a mountain bike, but then I was really honest with all the people that were with me on that trip in saying I'd never been on that track before. So some really interesting things happened that day. The first is that it was called River Track, and it's named that as a reason, as it turns out. The river that day was the highest anybody's ever seen it, actually. And by the time I got to it, my partner had already crossed it. So he told me exactly where to cross, and I jumped right in. But everybody else that was with me was not so keen to get wet. They decided they needed to try to cross on a slippery log that's like submerged in the water. And one by one they tried and slipped and then crossed the river. So this was a lesson about trust. They didn't trust me, they didn't know me, they didn't know Colin, and they certainly weren't going to take my word for it. They were going to try their own way first. After we were all wet, however, we became sort of amazingly unified and began to really work together as a team. We began to make decisions as a team, make an effort to go the right way as a team. So this was a really incredible experience for me. I did not expect everybody to really chip in. And then what happened was I like to begin the trip leading the run, but I also really like to give everybody else an opportunity to lead, which is, I think, a really important thing to do. It empowers the other people you're with. It gives them a sense of ownership over the adventure we're having. And I also get tired, and I don't always want to be out front, and I don't mind sharing the spotlight. So that was quite a good lesson about teamwork for me. And lastly is that never assume anything. So on the second time around this track, we neglected to wait at a crucial intersection because we thought that everybody else would know where we were going because we'd already been there. And I lost one of my runners. And it cost us time waiting and worrying about him. And then it caused us to backtrack. And then it changed the course of the entire run because we had to speed back to base camp to look for him. So you go out as a team, you come back as a team, and this means making sure no one gets left behind. Oh, teamwork makes the dream work, there we are. But the most important thing, and I think the thing that really sold me on trail running and ultra running, was the community behind it. So on big days of running and racing, trail runners organize themselves to go out together. They encourage one another constantly. They give one another advice about nutrition and gear. They are always telling one another, you can. And that is why I registered to race my first ultra, because somebody else from the trail running community said, hey, I think you can do that. So starting a business is like running one of the hardest, longest ultra races on the planet. And there are people who organize and prepare for a race like this, and people that just wing it. Make no mistake, startups are competitive, and the speed at which you get to market matters. So who do you think will win the race? And as a female entrepreneur, I also want to say that I am very aware that over 60% of women graduate from college, but only 29%, actually 26%, are college presidents. So over 52% of women are in the workforce, but only 4% are a member of Fortune 500 CEO list. So the lesson I want to leave you with, and especially to my female entrepreneur colleagues, is to be a little bit like the trail runner and embrace the community around you that supports you with some of these great resources that we talked about today. And also to be a little bit like Venus Williams. Be a collaborator, and don't be afraid to surround yourself with people that are better than you. And lastly, I believe in you.